Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew of the show, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, when I was driving over here tonight, I was just thinking, you know, how often, our lives are generally, for most of us in modern day America, they're busy. There's a lot going on, there's a lot happening, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of things we have to take care of and responsibilities and things of all natures and sorts that we think we need to do and we need to do now. And how many of us take the time to really stop and ask ourselves some of those questions? Are we doing the things in our lives that bring us joy? Are we doing the things in our lives that bring us love? Are we feeling the love that we know we can feel? Are we feeling the compassion and the joy? Are we feeling the connection to all that is? Something in every human being, we talk about this all the time, on the opening and on all the flyers we say dedicated to the oneness. And that oneness is an experience that something in all and every human being knows that we can have, a connection between all the living creatures, all the human beings of whatever race, color, religion, ethnic origin, trees, dolphins, whales, all of it, that we know there's a connection. At the root of all those things is what we call God, is what we call truth. And we know we can have that experience. And how many of us stop during our days, our busy days, all of us have busy days in one way or another, and ask that question, am I really having the experience? And it's really an important thing to stop and smell the roses, to stop and ask that question, to stop and let our lives catch up with the experience of that love, to do the things that bring those true experiences, that true connection into our lives. Throughout history, that is what the spiritual paths are about, to let human beings to have that experience, to let human beings know that oneness, to truly realize that oneness. And again, that's what the show Bridging Heaven and Earth is about. If any of you have seen it before, we're on all over the country, and that's the joy that we have in doing it, and that's what we get as feedback that people respond to, is that connection, that transcendental quality. And tonight we have guests with us again whose lives are dedicated to the recognition of that for themselves and all others. We have Stephen Sadleir with us, who's a spiritual teacher. He's a founder and the director of the Self-Awareness Institute. He's an author who's written many books, some of which are The Spiritual Seeker's Guide, The Awakening, and a new book is coming out very shortly called Looking for God. And in essence, that's what is that seeking? What is that finding? What is that realization? So for this next hour, stay with us and let this happen. And we also are so delighted to have back with us, and we've gotten, I would say, more questions about where's Abigail. Abigail's probably been on the show more than anybody except me. And she left this area for a while and we didn't know where she was, and then I got a call just recently and a guest had canceled the day before. They couldn't make this show, so it was just such a delightful synchronicity. So Abigail's back with us. If any of you have seen her, she's just an extraordinary mystical singer-songwriter, and she probably hasn't been on in 2 or 3 or 4 seasons, but she's back with us tonight, and we're just so delighted. So with Stephen and Abigail and myself, settle in, let this night ask the question and hopefully answer the question, what we're doing here, where can we get that love, how do we experience that love, how do we experience that connection, how do we feel that compassion for all of us, for each of us, to know that true connection. So please, as we normally do at this time, join me in a short meditation. If you don't know how to do a meditation, just relax, settle in, just get comfortable and let this next hour with Stephen and Abigail take us into that experience of love. So please join me. Thank you. So please settle in. We're going to start tonight's show. We got really a lot of calls. We had a show a couple of shows ago. I don't know what order they're showing all over the country, but we had a show a while ago with Harold Dull, who is the originator of this water healing modality called watsu. And we have a local facility in Santa Barbara, California, Sacred Spaces. Another guest of ours who'd been on and done drumming and other things on the show, Lorianne David, has this beautiful space, Sacred Spaces. And some of our crew went up there, Shelley and Jeff Azevedo, Shelley Flanders, and Bob Grunenberg, and did an interview up there and to show some of the techniques. So we got a lot of calls about what watsu is about. So we're going to do this video now with Lorianne David. It's an interview with her at her place, Sacred Spaces. So it's a beautiful video, so settle in.
Lorianne, thank you for having us at Sacred Space.
Welcome, Shelley. This is a real honor. Why don't you join me by the side of the pool?
Lorianne, tell us what a watsu pool is. What makes a watsu pool unique?
A watsu pool is a pool that's designed for this particular type of therapy. The water wants to be warm, so we keep it between 94 and 98 degrees, either on solar or on a propane backup heater. And the pool wants to be around 4 feet deep. Some pools are a little shallower or a little deeper. The therapist actually stands in the water and cradles the patient or client, supporting their neck and their body as they go through the stretching yoga-like movements, the shiatsu movements, and the other type of movement work that's done with the water breath dance in watsu.
Lorianne, you and Carolyn, take it away.
Watsu originated with a man named Harold Dull. He had studied Zen Shiatsu in Japan, and when he came back to the United States, he arrived at Harbin Hot Springs in Middletown, California, and began 25 years ago the practice of flotation combined with pressure Shiatsu, dance-like movements, and stretching into this art form and therapy called watsu. It's used for stress reduction and deep relaxation. It's always done in water that's, emanating the body temperature, for 94 to 98. And it's used now in many type of therapy practices from chiropractors and naturopaths and regular doctors. And there's a lot of adaptive watsu that's used with and for rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, some types of fibromyalgia, and other body dysfunction. The warm water makes the body very relaxed. There's also an element of the flotation which takes you into your deeper core and also has a rebirthing quality. We use it in Santa Barbara with the clients that I work with for all of those.
Hi, welcome. We're on the set with Stephen. Welcome, Stephen.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So, when I was reading your bio, the interesting thing to me was that for some reason in your life, I mean, you, at a very young age, were really hooked into like another reality, a reality that most kids your age aren't hooked into, and you started meditating really young. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was an odd duck, according to my mother. About 5 years old, I would sit in my bunk bed with my legs crossed, stick teddy bears under my arm, and I'd just sit with my eyes closed. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time, and neither did my mother. No one in my family meditated before, but I was just drawn to it very naturally, very early in my life. And from there, it went on to yoga classes in elementary school.
I mean, do you remember if you were having an experience? Because, I mean, we were talking earlier, Stephen came earlier, and we would, you know, to my house, and we were talking, and that,
Right.
that when I was young, I used to play around with my eyes and basically was meditating and looking at the light, and I remember specifically having that experience. Do you remember having an experience when you were sitting like that?
I do, although there were more profound experiences later on. I had 2 occasions as a young child where I had near-death experiences, both through accidents, and my heart and breathing stopped, and I had what a lot of people have heard, where you leave your body and you look down at yourself sitting there on the operating floor, and that instilled a very deep sense of purpose in my life that has changed it ever since, and really drew me to the spiritual path.
And so from almost an early age, you were following this, what the so-called spiritual path, seeking out the truth, God, that sort of information, right?
From as early as I can remember.
Really?
It was just there.
So why don't you take people a little bit through it so they get a feel for, you know, your history in that way, on that level of things.
Well, how much time do we have? Well, let's see. The gist
show's
of it
over,
is,
so.
the gist of it is this natural inclination to meditate just came. And then I never naturally gravitated for soccer, kickball, or other things kids did. I started going to yoga classes and started going to church on my own, one to another. Didn't matter which one. I was just curious to know who God was, who I was, what my purpose in life was, and there was just something eating away at me. And so I'd bounced around from church to church. My paternal grandparents took me to their church, so I learned about classical Christianity through them, and that added something substantial to my life, but it didn't answer all my questions. But whenever I went out into nature, whether it was the fields behind my house or when I was old enough to drive, I'd go out to the Sierra Nevadas, I would just sit out in nature. And I heard something in the silence. And that was really my calling, is to go out and find a quiet place. Of course, later on I learned to meditate, and I found that I could accelerate.
In the traditional sense.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
classically,
Right.
Through different spiritual teachers. But even before that, there was just a sense of, we can all meditate without training, proper training, just by spending time alone. You know, I asked my mother, and she says she meditates when she goes into her garden. So there's a basic sense of meditation that I think everybody has some connection with when they're in nature. And then there's more refined styles that can accelerate your growth process. But that's what got me started, being in nature. Matter of fact, one time I was out in the Sierra Nevada wilderness, the John Muir Woods, out of Bishop, California. And I went up to a place called the Palisades Glacier. And I was just there all alone for about a week. And I climbed to the top of this mountain, and I just sat
And this is
prayed.
when you were 6. No.
I was 16. I just got my
16.
driver's license.
Uh-huh. Even so, that's fairly young to be out in the woods alone for a week.
Yeah, Yeah, I was.
Traditionally speaking.
I was an odd kid.
Right, right.
And it came to me in a time of prayer, communion with my Creator, that that I had a calling, and that I was to look into virtually every spiritual path and tradition to find my truth. And if I was diligent in that pursuit, that God would not deny me, that I would discover the truth I was looking for. I would find God, I would find myself, and I'd find the purpose for which I was incarnated. And that's taken up virtually my whole life ever since.
So why don't you take people through that a little? I mean, not every day or every minute, but I mean the big chunks of time that you spent with different teachers and different paths. And
I was pretty methodological about it. I started out with religions. I was closest to Christianity because my parents were Christians. So I thought, well, what's the roots of that? And I discovered Judaism, and even before that, the Zoroastrian religion. So I would pick up the texts, whether it's the Talmud or the Torah, and I read it cover to cover. I'd go to different synagogues and temples. I'd talk to the rabbis and the people that attended those congregations, and then I moved on to different Christian sects, the Orthodoxy, the Catholicism, different sects of Protestantism. I mean, there's hundreds of them. So this took me a great deal of time, as you can imagine. And after I went through the Western religions, I went through the Eastern religions. I made several trips around the world, going to India, guru hopping, from ashram to ashram, learning different forms of meditation, studying with different teachers, going to the Middle East. Pretty much every major spiritual path and tradition I at least touched on. Some I gravitated to more than others. And the idea isn't that there's one that's better than another, but you get a sense that each one has a gift. Each one had something that enriched my life and gave me maybe a piece of the puzzle.
And at some point you felt like you had most of the puzzle in a certain sense?
Well, that's it's kind of an oxymoron in a sense. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and it's in that state of knowing nothing that you realize more.
You have an experience of something.
Right.
Yeah.
And at another level, you go beyond having an experience. The one having experience isn't that real anymore. There's just a oneness, an isness, and it become internalized in this human being, and that gives it some merit and some applicability into life. And that's why I have the sense of wanting to give back now and share what I've learned with others.
And that's the reason you set up the Institute, which is out of Los Angeles area, right? Why don't you talk a little about the Institute?
Well, the Institute kind of evolved from going from religion to religion and arcane teaching, mystery school, shamanistic paths, New Age teachings. Each one had something, but there was some point where I realized they needed a teacher. And so I prayed, and I got an image of this guru in my mind. And I'd already seen a lot of gurus, but I happened to be down at the Bodhi Tree bookstore in Los Angeles. Perhaps you've been there. And in their used bookstore section, they had a flyer of this very wise-looking Eastern teacher. He came from a lineage that's over 10,000 years old. In the Tamil Nadu section of India, they were the Tamil Siddhas, Kundalini masters, Shaktipat teachers. And I saw that guy's face, and that was the guy in my vision.
Wow.
And so the next day, he happened to be giving a discourse in Glendale. And I lived down in Laguna Beach at the time. So I drove up every day for about 7 days. And I just connected with this guy. And ever since, had been studying with him. I spent 12 years in an apprenticeship. Now, I'd already been teaching yoga for about 20 years. I've been studying and teaching yoga for a long, long time. But I just connected with this guy, and what he did, what he shared with me, meant more to me than anything else I'd ever connected with. And he lived the way I thought an enlightened person should live. There was just the right chemistry for us. I'm not saying he's the only one or even the best one, but he was my teacher at that time. And I ended up doing an apprenticeship with him over 12 years and became a Kundalini master in this tradition. And then he stopped coming to this country. He pretty much just asked me to take over in his absence. And so I've been teaching Kundalini or Shaktipat meditation for the last 15 years, traveling all over the country and some other parts of the world. But more and more I realize it isn't about any one technique or any one path or lineage of teaching. It's really that the answers lie within you. The meditation is a tool. Any philosophy from any of the religions or teachers that I've studied were really just helping us to see what already lies within us. And that realization is realizing that we are all one, like you say in your show. What you've dedicated your life to is really the essence of what we're going to find by looking into these different spiritual paths.
There is a root.
There is a root.
Or there was a root at one time. When the masters knew something, and then as it diffused down through the ages, then you get holy wars.
Right, we
Because
got lost somewhere.
Yeah,
we got lost
right.
in the shuffle.
Something happened that we didn't experience that oneness,
Right.
and then you get all the separation, all the division, all the conflict, and the lunacy.
In here, at least.
Yeah, right.
In here.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
beautiful thing about
Right.
that, Alan, is we're always connected. The
Yeah,
fact
there's
that your
only
heart
one.
is beating
Right, exactly.
means that there's a
Right.
living presence, and we
Right.
can always get back to that, whether you're a Christian or an atheist or a Buddhist or
Yeah,
study with
right,
a Swami.
absolutely. Whether you think you're all these things.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just a mental contrivance. The
Right.
truth is you've always been the spirit or the consciousness, however you want to perceive that. And as soon as you're ready to go back there, it's waiting for you. God never left.
There
It's
is
just-
there isn't anything else, really.
There
That's
is nothing else. That's exactly right.
Right.
Let's see, he's enlightened. There you have it. So it's a matter of us not either ignoring or denying what's calling it to us, to rediscover or to strengthen in our awareness and to live that in our life.
And this led you to write the books you're writing, to allow that experience to expand out and allow that to come through in another form, in a sense.
Yes, the first book I wrote was called The Spiritual Seeker's Guide, and it was the predecessor to Looking for God, which is coming out by Penguin this fall. And it was actually, this might sound funny, but I was actually directed to write this book. I believe it was my calling, that God wanted me to go out and create what is basically a synopsis of everything out there, all the expressions of God, so that anybody could look at all the different reflections of God, the way that we reflect upon Him or it. And my hope is in doing that we see the oneness in the whole, and instead of thinking fragmentically that this is the right path or this is the only way, that we start to see that there's a unified force, there's something holistic in the teaching, and there's something beautiful being taught in each of these paths. And hopefully we'll connect with that. We'll share that and commune in that awareness.
Okay, let me ask you this. What do you think the interesting part of this experiment, that the fact is that that's the case, and then the fact is somehow we don't, as human beings to some extent? What is that little quirk in the human experience that makes the illusion seem real?
What's your mind? Just like it said in the creation myth or the creation story in the Bible, where we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There was a separation that occurred with our communion with God. And I think that holds true to individuals in this present day, that when you get caught up in your head, you're enforcing your individual sense. When you quiet your mind through meditation or prayer or just your walk in the wilderness, there's a sense of communion that naturally occurs. There's sense of
the expansion
beyond your mind.
Yeah,
Your
into the-
egoic
right,
sense.
right.
And there's a natural sense of wholeness and oneness and compassion
Gratefulness and
that
yeah,
develops
all
out
right.
of that. And if you look at all the great teachers of the world, you look at a Christ or a Buddha or Teresa or the Dalai Lama, what we see in them that we revere is the sense of compassion. And that we all have that compassionate nature, and I think through meditation you develop that very naturally because it's already there. It's a matter of rediscovering it.
Yeah, once you experience the connection, I mean, compassion and love and joy are like the outgrowths of that.
Right. But it's interesting, when you get caught up in your head, you tend to get very preoccupied with yourself. And that creates a vicious cycle of creating more problems for yourself. So we go through our life solving problems instead of sharing love. But we have a choice. And it's interesting, once you switch back, you connect with your spirit, you connect with that source of compassion and love within you, all of a sudden the other things in your life start taking care of themselves miraculously. It's like you've allowed your spirit to guide you. It will. And all of a sudden things run much more smoothly, much more naturally, like they're meant to be. Imagine that.
Like the wind is in your sails, kind
Right.
of. Right. So, At this institute, I mean, people come from all over the world, or do you travel out? I mean, is this an actual facility that people could come to and learn meditation techniques? Or
I did, but to tell you the truth, something started to happen. A thing started to happen, another group. I started becoming a guru, and I didn't want that. You see, the answers lie within. So what I try and do now through my writing and my lectures, and even if someone does come to study meditation with me, what I'm trying to show them is that I'm not your answer. My book isn't your answer. Hopefully I can inspire you, or something I've said or read or written will inspire you to find the answers that you already know intuitively lie within you.
it's only a tool.
Right.
At best, it's only a tool, and use it and find yourself.
Exactly. You don't need an intermediary, although there are times that can facilitate it or inspire you.
Yeah,
Just-
point in a certain direction.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you're just not really clear.
Like
And then-
hopefully this show even.
Even this show, God forbid.
Yeah, someone connects with this, they hear what they're saying. Part of them already knows that it's true, and it reinforces it. Maybe it inspires them a little bit to make more time to sit alone with themselves. They don't have to come out to see me and sit and do a third eye meditation. The Shakti, or the energy, which is the inspiration of my spirit, will connect through this video camera and through our discourse. And the point of it is that it lies within you. And what we want to do is what I hope to do is get people to look within themselves to find those answers.
Yeah, that's
So I've kind of
beautiful.
renunciated being a guru and having an institute and trying to do a thing. Not that I won't do the teaching work, but I think the emphasis needs to be on the individual looking within themselves.
Right, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, and now I guess what we're going to do is have the return of Abigail. So we're extremely excited, and I'm sure if you haven't seen her before, once she's done, you'll be excited and want to see her again. So Abby's going to do 2 songs, Plant the Seed and Too Many Faces, both of which are written and performed by Abigail. So we're just really excited and delighted. So, Abby?
Hey, you crazy lunatic world, I missed you. I can be a woman who is lazy, sitting in a field daily gazing. Really, I can tell you it's amazing to be sitting in a field with the daisies. Yeah, come along and see, yeah, come along. Come along and see, yeah, come along. Yeah. In a field with the daisies, you gotta plant your seeds where the sun's blazing. You got to plant them where the soil has been aging. Well, come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Ooh, come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Ooh, come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Yeah, 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 yeah. I can show you something that you thought you never knew. Really deep inside you, an answer lies in you now. But since I'm your reflection, let me tell you what you know. You gotta plant your seeds if you want to outgrow. So come plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Come plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Ooh, come plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Oh, come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. You know we'll plant your seeds and let them grow like crazy. Oh, plant them near the buildings and the lazy. Throw Sow your seeds among the open places. Sow your seeds in empty, naked spaces. Well, come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Oh, come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Well, come to plant your seeds, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yes, come to plant them. Come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Oh, come to plant your seeds, yeah, come to plant them. Yeah, yeah. This one's called Too Many Faces. It's about all the different aspects of the world. Might speak to you. Sometimes I really don't have any idea what it means. Ooh, la-la, ooh, la-la, ooh, la. Ooh, la-la, ooh, la-la, ooh, la. Now I'm completely insane and I don't mind the water. I like it, the water. It's keeping me alive. Now you can drench me in pain. And I would like a lot to, I ought to, I like you. It never is the same. I am an answer in training. And I am not art, but blow through. And I am not only complaining, I simply am mad about you. Too many faces, too many faces, so many places that I've been through. Too many faces, but so many places, so many places that I reach you. Now I'm completely in vain, and I would like a lot to, I ought to, I like you. It never is the same. Now I will help you to train. Well, you're not like you think we are, not like you said you think. I think you're finally invading, and it feels fine. We want this, but I'm just like you when you're training. You're taking my mind to find you. Too many faces, too many faces, so many places I've been through. Too many faces, got so many places, so many places I reach you. Oh no, oh well, oh yes, oh no, oh no, oh well, oh yes, oh no, 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 well, yes, no. Too many, too many, too many, too many. No, 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 no. Now I can pull my own feathers apart. Oh, it loves me and loves me not, loves me and loves me not. Well, I know it's only a start. Damn, it's not just easy. Who do you need? Who do you need? Who do you need? Like I like. Do you need? Do you need? Who do you need? Like I like. Too many faces, too many faces, so many places I've been through. Too many faces, got so many places, so many places that I reach you. Oh no, oh well, oh yes, oh no, oh well, oh yes, oh no. Too many, too many, too many, too many.
Hi, thank you, Abby. That was beautiful. So we're back on the set with Stephen. So why don't you give people an idea of Looking for God, the new book that's coming out? That was kind of an outgrowth and an update of your first book, right?
Yeah, and the first book was a demand. I mean, this was a calling that consumed my life, which is part of the fun of writing it, because it took over my life. You know, I did go to college, studied business, and got a graduate degree in finance, and ended up working in the financial fields. But I really didn't have a life for most of my life, in a conventional sense. I've never owned a TV. I didn't date for 10 years. I was consumed with all these religious books. If you go into my library at home, you'll see the entire Upanishads, the Rig Veda, the Samaveda, the Ashura Veda, just about any spiritual text that have been written. I've read it cover to cover. And it doesn't mean I've learned anything, by the way. I don't pretend to be an expert on any of it. But I was consumed. Where most people go out and have fun at night, my idea of fun was reading the sutras, the Puranas, the Vedas, you know, or some other texts that most people have never heard of. But in doing so, the Spirit filled me. That was my path. That was part of my training to do what I did here today. And so the first book, Spiritual Seeker's Guide, was what I'll call a rough cut of that. A small publisher published it. About 20,000 were sold, which is pretty good considering you're a first-time author, never been heard of before. But an interesting thing happened. I got called by Avery Publishing after making the commitment to the first publisher. It's an interesting story here, I think. And they said they wanted to do the book. I said, well, it's too late because I've already committed to someone else. But years later, when that first publisher left, I called them back up knowing that I think there'd be a greater demand. And they said, well, we like it, but we want to expand on it. We want to answer all these questions. 2.5 more years spent redoing that book cover to cover, and then Penguin bought it. Penguin bought Avery.
Bought the company that, yeah.
They bought Avery, so now it's coming out this fall under with Penguin Putnam under their Perigee imprint. But it's essentially a rewritten form of the Spiritual Seeker's Guide. New, improved edition, as it were.
And so this is like a compendium of all the different religions, all the different spiritual paths, in a sense,
exactly.
in one book.
That's exactly right, Alan. What I try to do is take a lot of the work out for other people. For me, that was my hobby, my passion, my calling. But most people aren't going to take that much time to pursue all these different paths, but they may be curious, what's a Sufi? Or what's the difference between a Seventh-day Adventist, a Mormon, and an Episcopalian? Well, what I've done is I've kind of summarized each of these. I've gone into the arcana if you want to know about Falun Gong or Feng Shui or astrology or tarot. If you've heard of the builders of the Atatürm or Ekankar or Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, Sai Baba. Who are these people? What I've tried to do is synopsize it, recommend some books, show you where the websites are,
Wow.
so you can just dig in.
Wow.
It's a smorgasbord, as it were. And I'm not recommending one over another.
Is there a conclusion? Is there some, in other words, do you come in at the end and say, what we've been talking about the whole show, that it's within you, whatever spiritual path you're doing, ultimately you want to end up in a place of love. You don't want to end up as a Buddhist. You don't want to end up as a Christian. You want to end up in one. You want to end up in that love, or however, words we would use to describe it. I think we talked about in the first segment, and basically,
you and I would say that, but I tried very intentionally not to recommend anything to my reader. I'm going to let their spirit be their guide. There's going to some people, and the book's going to confirm their faith in Christ. For others, they're going to go deeper into maybe Buddhism, or find their Swami, the guru they've been looking for, or maybe they're going to find something they've never heard of, or maybe they're not going to join any one group, but they'll be enriched by sampling a few of the others. I came to a conclusion, but I'm going to trust that their spirit is going to lead them where it needs to take them. And far be it from me to tell someone else what they should conclude from all that. So I very intentionally didn't prefer one group to another. I didn't want to sway the reader into believing or disbelieving anything, but if anything, just to look within themselves perhaps and see where their spirit moved them.
So that's an exciting thing for you to have this part of, in a sense, coming into completion and having this new and improved edition coming out.
Well, it's
I mean,
exciting
makes you-
with a big publisher. That's the main thing. To
Right.
get the word out to the Barnes and Nobles and Borders and so forth, there's a cartel. If you can't get into the Ingram,
Right.
which is a distributor, you're not going to get into the major chains. I was lucky to get in some places and have some shelf life, but you need a big publisher to get behind you to really get this.
I mean, even if you get in there and you get 2 books in there and it's on some big shelf somewhere and there's no publicity for it, there's no, unless
That's
you're
right.
touring every book and doing book signings. Because we've had, and we were talking about this earlier, we've had hundreds of people on, really, literally,
Yeah.
who have written extraordinary books, and it's just very difficult for the word to get out, with the exception of the Deepak Chopras, the Marianne Williamsons, that are backed by, not only are they put out by the big publishers, but they put money into them,
Right.
and they advertise them.
Right.
I mean, just to be put out by a big publisher, I mean, they could bury a book as easy as
Oh, yeah.
anybody.
And they do.
And they do,
they
for
do.
whatever reason. If
Well,
they're
this is my 5th book, so I know from firsthand experience. I had my first one published by a small publisher. I've self-published 3, and I learned the hard way.
Right.
You don't, unless you have large financial resources to hire the media attention and do all the publicity it takes to get on shows like this, then you're not gonna get sales, and you're not gonna get the word out. So I feel fortunate to have a big publisher behind me.
What do you think, just interestingly enough, of the internet? I know, like, obviously technology, I mean, we were talking earlier that he came and watched the show because he doesn't have, not only doesn't he have a VCR, he doesn't have a TV. So we're ready, we're going to have to, send him a TV, a VCR, and the video, to watch to be able to see this show. So are you in, do you have like a website? Do you
Yeah.
have, so you have that?
Selfawareness.com.
Self-awareness. So, but do you see that the internet has the potential to have almost breaking down time and space? I mean, because on the internet there is no time and space, and that it can be a tool to reach millions of people. It's almost like a new paradigm of reaching new people with, we were talking about your book, and we got a CD coming out, this Leslie of Bridging Heaven and Earth, that a lot of people could be reached almost instantaneously, above and beyond the cartels of the Barnes and Nobles and things
Right.
like that.
Yeah, quicker and in global markets.
Exactly.
For instance, on my website, I get people from Singapore, Russia, China, people
It's amazing.
never
isn't it?
heard of any of my books, but
Right.
they're looking under categories and they found us. And
Right,
then they
in
want the
in the
book.
search engines and things like that. I think it's an extraordinary thing. This, it's almost like in the '60s there were like drugs that were like the portal
Right.
into a certain experience, and then now there's something else. Now both those things taken to their extreme become disharmonious. You know what I
And get
mean?
caught up in it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like, ego and all the things that happen. Your identifications with, a drug taker or an internet, rather than going through it into something else. But they have the potential to do that, as all these religions, in a sense, do.
By the way, I think I'm the first guy to have an interactive meditation online. I've actually got a place you can click through and be guided in a meditation while hooked into the internet.
And your head gets sucked right into
you-
the monitor.
and
It's
turns your brain
unbelievable.
to mush, of course.
Right.
But
Actually, wasn't Timothy Leary doing something like that through video or something?
think
I
he
know he
was
was trying to
trying,
do that at the
yeah.
end. I don't know if he had the technology. But the technology is growing, because we were talking earlier. I mean, even audio, and especially video, the bandwidth isn't quite there yet. So once that gets to the point, I mean, we were talking about like this show, getting all of the Bridging Heaven and Earth shows, or all of your meditations available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to Africa, to Asia, every town will have, either in the Chamber of Commerce or the library or somewhere, that availability to the internet. I mean, I think it's an extraordinary expansion tool.
it's
in that
right
way.
around the corner.
And you do a lot of that in terms of your business, that you're
Right.
funding all these
Yeah.
bandwidth and...
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
My other life is as a venture capitalist, so I actually raise money for startups, technology companies, and the things that they're doing will blow your mind. Where technology's going is incredible right now.
And it has the potential to really serve that oneness, that experience.
I believe it's all being divinely guided,
Right.
Alan. And the beautiful part of it is, we talk intellectually about ideas and technologies, but what's really underlying it is the soul. It's the heart. It's love.
Right.
I think there's an incredible need for people to connect and open their hearts. That's the heart of any practice too. And like when you look at all the different religions of the world, when you look at all the different gurus, what are they all really saying? What are they trying to teach us?
There's one message, really.
Yeah. So even if it's the internet, just as the internet is almost like a metaphor of a global brain, and the neurons all connected through dendrites and axons, well, we've got all these PCs connected through cable lines and DSL and so forth. So there's a similar interconnectedness. But what drives it? What drives any human being?
The
or any
desire to feel love and can give love.
Exactly.
Right.
It all comes back.
We don't know it, but really that's what moves us. We think it's other things. We think it's money, we think it's fame, we think
it is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the key.
Yeah.
We're not listening enough with our heart. We're listening with our brain.
So, and a lot of what you do are, in essence, to use human words, tools to drop into the heart.
Exactly.
To start seeing the world through the heart rather than computing it through reason.
Right.
Because there's an experience greater than reason, in a sense.
That's exactly right. Right now your heart is beating. Why is that? There's a living presence inside you. And if all we do is take the time to acknowledge that living presence, to go in there and feel that and acknowledge that, that initiates a process.
Even that
an awakening
one
process.
recognition, to turn that recognition.
If they did it right now, in
Right.
this moment, if you just stop, take a deep breath, just feel your heart beating in that stillness, in that inner quiet, something starts to open up. The fact you've acknowledged that presence awakens it. And that's what I'm
It awakens
trying.
your realization of it. I mean, it was awake to begin. I mean, it
Right.
never, it's not going anywhere.
Well, it brings you back into focus with
Right.
it. It brings your it makes you conscious of it, perhaps,
Right.
so that the mind can integrate with the heart. See, the mind isn't the enemy.
Right.
It's just not the master.
Right.
So the idea is if we
Is
get
the
heart
computer
centered
out of
again-
control?
Right.
Exactly.
Who's running the show?
Right, exactly. So your books and your institute or whatever, and your vibration, you're moving through this life, whatever the next step will be, is more and more to vibrate that and be that.
In a nutshell, it's to share love. And a lot of times you talk about love, guards go up. There's a lot of walls that come around. Oh, the emotions are tender, and there's a lot of schmaltzy talk about love, love,
And the
You just-
expectations and singular love and
right.
all the...
And misunderstanding and fear. But you see, the intellect is safer. We're trained to learn, to understand. It's safe to pick up a book and read, or to talk about, have a discourse about it and hear it and think about it. But all that, my hope and my goal is to get people to use that to look within, to get connected inside themselves, to connect with their heart center, and let their heart be their guide. You're never going to find God by understanding it.
It's bigger than that.
It's bigger than
that
you
too.
can conceive or
Exactly.
perceive. But you can experience it. Your life is the experience of it. So if you go right to the source, it's there waiting for your attention.
In a sense, it's very simple.
It's
It
extremely
looks
simple. It's just the mind makes it complicated. Right.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean, I always talk about it as like this is a really amazing experiment here. To think that everything's connected, we're all connected, and we think we're separate. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's absurd, isn't it?
It's unbelievable.
I mean, we're living in insanity, just like Abigail's song. There's this insanity that we're living in because we're caught up in our head, not realizing there's incredible love and peace. There's bliss right here. That is my reality. So what I want to do is share with them that reality and help them to realize it within themselves. You don't need me to experience that bliss or that reality. And if you get it from a book or another teacher, that's great, but realize that it's already there just waiting for your time.
That's
and
what you're
attention.
made of.
That's right.
No,
It's the essence of what you are.
Right.
It's what's sustaining your existence, that creative force, which I call God.
Right, and throughout history, that's been one of the names of it, and
Right.
and that's what people seek, and that's your book is looking for God. Right?
Looking for God.
And actually, we had another guest on who I've been dealing with on Patrice Carr's God Made Easy. I don't know if it's a little book, and basically, it is easy because it's what we are. I
Right.
mean, it's just like once the illusion stops, and the thing that separates us, called mind or whatever, ego, the only thing that exists is that love, that one.
And that's what's so beautiful about meditation, and I come back to it over and over again. Whatever form that you gravitate to, there's something about stilling the mind, just getting out of your head for a little bit. Whether you're just floating on a raft or walking in the forest or sitting with your legs crossed, whatever it is, it's in that stillness that grace comes to you very naturally. You don't have to become a Hindu or a Buddhist. Whatever your thing is, it doesn't matter, because it's not about a thing.
It's a simple letting go, a simple, I mean, we're using words, but...
Right. Well, even Christ went out to the desert. He found that peace within himself. That's where he communed with his Creator. So did the Buddha. So wherever you go, you see this practice over and over. The people that are our greatest teachers all had that in common. So I hope to inspire the listeners of your show or the readers of my book to take the time to look, because it's as easy or as hard as you make it. And if you just take a little bit of time every day to still, to be quiet, to acknowledge that living presence, to allow yourself to feel that grace, it'll grow. If you put your attention on it, it grows it. Feel the love, it's already there, it feeds it. It's a self-nurturing process. And you are worthy. You are worthy.
So when you say that, do you feel that people don't think they're worthy of having that experience, and that's one of the barriers to that?
Yeah. We live in a society that's filled with guilt and shame and fear. This is the basis that I think has corrupted our society. And
what is the basis of that? Why do you think, I mean, was that from eating the apple long ago? Or
I
mean,
think that is a part of it, really.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's a lot of misunderstanding. It's a lot of, well, you can go back to the creation myth itself. And what was that about? If you look at the archetypes that we've chosen, and I believe misrepresented, incidentally, because in and of themselves they taught something very good. They brought up the point. Look, you get in your head, this is Steve's interpretation, you lose connection with that living presence. You're not, if you're not listening to God and you're just listening to what you want, another way to put it, then you're estranging yourself from God and that living presence, that divinity, that bliss. Chill on that. You naturally go back home. You never were away from home. You just projected a false reality. Heaven is here on earth.
Right, but how does guilt and fear come in? How does that happen?
Usually it's indoctrination, societal indoctrination.
That there's a right and wrong, a good and bad, and you're on one side or the other, and a lot of the what is indoctrinated as right is like naturally human.
What is right?
Yeah, I mean, but even if there's no right or wrong in that sense, I mean, what society sometimes does is almost the natural things in life, certain sexuality, certain naturalnesses.
Right. Look at the body. We want to cover the body. We're
right.
ashamed of it.
Right. Exactly.
And we're hung up about it.
Yeah.
We're scared of our sexuality, so it's repressed, and it's either overtly it becomes a preoccupation, or it becomes something we're in denial of. Either way, we're not in balance with it, are we? And what we have to do is look at our society and we see we're out of balance. Well, why is that? It's because we're out of touch. Why is that? Because we haven't gotten in touch. So rather than look at what was wrong in the past or try and find fault in something out there, what I try and do is help people just look within. You already know the answers are there. Intuitively, you know that. Go there. The answers you need will come to you. It'll get clear.
Just get quiet. Just slow down.
Right. The grace is present, and any healing that needs to take place, it'll occur. You can trust that. I know that from my own personal experience and by working with literally thousands of other people.
Right.
But it's a choice you make. You have a choice to be happy or not, to do something about it or not.
Okay, well, I think, once again, the show went by really fast. So if anybody wants any information about Stephen or Abigail, please call me, 805-687-2053. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure. Let that chance come into your life. Be open to that love. It's there. It's what you are. Let it flower. Good night.